welcome to this week's episode of the Python People podcast with me, Guy Bevington, MD of True North Recruitment Group. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by Maddie Armitage. Maddie, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good to hear. That's all you can hope for in today's day and age, isn't it, really? Being okay.
Staying well.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to start on a doom and gloom note, but you know what I mean. So yeah, Maddie, by way of introduction, for those people that are yet to have the pleasure of making your acquaintance, you are the Chief Data and Digital Product Officer for Dentsu International. And we had a good chat quite recently. We talked about marketing and I guess its relationship with data, and in particular kind of customer data. And I think to sort of frame the chat that we're about to have, I think it's fair to say in this day and age that data, it can be quite an emotive word for a lot of people. Certainly a lot of customers and consumers are very conscious about how their data is consumed and who it's sort of shared with and sort of privacy and all that kind of thing. And that obviously comes very much into the world of marketing. And there've obviously been some huge changes, kind of coming into effect around how data can be used from a marketing perspective, with the likes of third-party data and first-party, and this sort of movement towards a cookieless world. So we thought, let's do a podcast on it, get together and have a bit of a chat, and here we are. So I guess before we kind of go into all that, it'd be great just to, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your kind of career to date, to give people a bit of an overview of your background. That would be fantastic.
So I actually started my career working in data. So it was my first ever job, working for Equifax actually. So really grounded in data, and I've actually come full circle, now being responsible for data predominantly at dentsu. So working at Equifax, it really laid the foundations for me in terms of my career. Got really good grounding, as I said, that then led into me working for a company called FreeServe. And FreeServe was owned originally by Dixon's Carphone, and they were responsible really for driving through internet in the UK, and also launching broadband as well. There was a direct then connection with France Telecom, who owns FreeServe, which then organically for me led me into a digital marketing career, predominantly in telco. So going from T-Mobile into Virgin Media, a stint at Sky, then did a little bit of a tech geek fest at Rackspace, and then followed by British Gas and EE, and now where I am working at Dentsu International. And really, career has been based around digital marketing, digital, which then led to products, and obviously data sitting at the heart of all of that. So it's been a thread that's been weaved through all of my career, and you can probably tell I'm quite passionate about it. So that's where I am now. Good,
thank you for that. Yeah, fantastic career to date, and certainly deserve to be where you are. I guess it's a bit of a kind of an intro. I mean, I think a lot of people are aware that there's sort of certain big data initiatives, data privacy initiatives that have kind of been rolled out that a lot of people have heard about, like GDPR and things like that. But from somebody kind of on the know, on the inside, for those people out there that aren't aware, can you just sort of give a bit of an overview and I guess a bit of a guideline of some of the policies and restrictions that now sort of exist for the marketing sector in relation to targeting and customer data privacy and how people's data can be used?
Yeah, I mean, there has been lots of legislation that's been taking place over the last few years. So GDPR, obviously back in 2016, 2017, that obviously meant that data had to be consented in order for collection. You need to let people know. And privacy notices were obviously a must on all websites and apps. But there has been, 2020 has been a crazy year for legislation. I think that we've seen, obviously, real-time bidding and ad tech, the ICO have been reviewing that and looking at those practices in more detail, and the impact on that, really from a transparency perspective around how the supply chain works. And then we've had the ICO Draft Marketing Code of Practice, which in 2020 has really sort of brought into question the use of third-party data, first-party data, and also explicit consent. So, you know, you have to be very clear and transparent about how you're collecting customers' data for use for marketing purposes. And also, as you know, cookies. So the demise of the cookie, the fact that we're going to move towards a cookieless world, and by June 2022, we're going to see that fall away. So I think from a marketing perspective, it's really important that people are aware of the legislative changes that are coming downstream and to prepare for them, to make sure that they've got the right privacy consents in place, the right technology and infrastructure to ensure that that consenting and operations can take place effectively, and that all of the data that they're using, certainly for marketing and for advertising, is compliant. So incredibly important. And consumers are so much more aware of their data and how it's used and where it gets stored. And I think for that very reason, it's really important for marketers to be aware of and compliant with the data that they're using.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're dead right in terms of the kind of public awareness around data. It seems to be one of the real buzzwords of the last sort of few years, hasn't it? And you've got companies like Apple now, obviously in their most recent announcement, talking about the new iOS and how you can sort of tailor your data privacy app by app now, can't you? Things like that. So I think it's definitely becoming more and more in people's sort of consciousness and awareness about how their data is being used and sort of targeted. And I guess with that in mind, then, I mean, what's the general consensus from marketing agencies, do you think, around these kind of new policies? Has it left a lot of agencies kind of quaking in their boots, or do you think it's still possible for agencies to continue to provide a targeted and effective service for their customers around the new data?
You've seen it coming. So it isn't something new. We obviously have a period of time that we can pivot and change. I think a lot of the agencies will be doing just that. They'll be looking at their data and product strategies and looking at how they pivot in order to ensure that they're being compliant in their processes with data and how they're helping their clients. I think that it's not the end of the line. I think that we will still be able to go and target audiences effectively and be able to still achieve growth for our clients in an effective way. I think we just have to work within the boundaries of legislation in order to do that, and where we won't be able to use cookies in order to track and target audiences across an ecosystem anymore. There will be other methods that will be put in place. Some people ID, KT, where you'll be able to track effectively in a compliant way. Other people are talking about the fact that there'll be a massive push around content. So, content will become more relevant, context will become more key, and that will be the route in which we will get over the compliance issues. So where there's always a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case, absolutely. And I'm quite interested in this whole concept of, because I guess from an outsider perspective, you can kind of see a lot of these new policies as real kind of bottlenecks, to be honest, for marketing agencies to be able to do their job as effectively as possible and, like say, promote growth, quite frankly, for their clients. But there is this whole argument of the shift from more third-party data to more first-party data, and actually how that data in many ways it's a lot more I suppose a lot higher quality, quite frankly, because it's built on trust and obviously permission, and in many ways it's probably easier to kind of build a relationship with customers when their data is permissioned, and you can obviously get a better quality readout from the audience on that. But do you think there's anything in particular that technology can do? What sort of role do you feel that AI and machine learning, I guess, is a huge buzzword in every industry now, but I know in particular in marketing, about how technology can potentially be used to kind of extrapolate out targeting and that kind of thing. But do you feel there's a particular role that technology can play to ensure that advertising continues to be effective and cost efficient?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the use of technology platforms to enable the collection of data, and to effectively store it, to clean it, then you can actually plug it into other media channels to effectively create really strong marketing strategies. So clients are doing that. I think from an automation and machine learning perspective, I think more and more we're seeing kind of data science being used to do advanced analytics, modeling around particular audiences. I think natural language processing, so the understanding of mood, sentiment, behaviours, being able to pick up on trends on audiences is going to be incredibly important. And that will really help shape and mould how we go and we target audiences more effectively in the future. So I think AI, machine learning, biometrics, I mean, they're all wonderful pieces of technology. And I think that they will be embraced in the future by marketing agencies, certainly, and clients alone who want to obviously in-house all of this capability. They'll be investing in that for the future to be able to effectively go after their audiences and grow their customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, obviously in the world that we focus on, which is very heavily data science and AI, I mean, you do kind of come across certain uses, I guess, of machine learning where it's just a bit of a no-brainer that, an algorithm that can extrapolate a result and sort of do some predicting and forecasting is just a great use of where data science can kind of come in and really prove value. And certainly in the marketing world, to me, it's just a real kind of obvious area that data science and AI and machine learning used in the right way can genuinely add a huge amount of value from a marketing perspective. So it's a really exciting kind of space, isn't it, moving forward? Just going back to the point I was making earlier about data and its sort of emotive reputation in this day and age. I mean, how do you feel customers actually feel about the way their data is being used by digital marketing? Because I mean, personally, I'm always up for a bespoke service and a tailored service, and I love receiving things that are genuinely really targeted and sort of specific for me and my preferences. But I think with a lot of people, it's kind of fine line between targeted and probably like harassment on the internet in terms of getting loads of stuff that comes through it's just not relevant to you at all. So how do you feel that the average consumer, the average customer feels in this day and age about data and the way they're marketed to online?
Yeah, well, probably the way that you and I feel about it, which is I think that if it's relevant, then it makes complete sense. I think you want a personalised experience. You want to have the messaging that's tailored to you, but you don't want it to be annoying. And you also want it to be right. So it's no good being shown an article for a pair of shoes once you've bought them. And it's an insult even to see them that they're in the sale. So that can be incredibly annoying. But I think maybe with the pandemic, with this period of time through COVID as well, maybe people's view around marketing and what they see in the content that they're consuming is changing. I think people want more of an emotional connection to what they're reading, what they're seeing, what they're buying. We're starting to see a lot of trends coming through with people that are waiting for the pandemic to be over so that they can actually go and spend again, do all the things that they want to do. And I think that there is a real opportunity for us now to make sure that when we do personalise that content, that it's right for that audience, that we get the balance right, and we can do that. And I think people now, they're so much more aware around their personal data, that they have control of it. And I think I mentioned before about the ICO draft marketing code of practice around the explicit consent. It's not just enough to say, oh, we're going to use your data for marketing purposes. You have to be explicit to tell the customer where you're going to use their data. We're going to email you. We're going to call you. You may receive an advert from us. And you have to actually explicitly sign up to those individual pieces. So that's going to be a seismic shift that we're going to see that puts the consumer back in control.
Yeah.
I think once they feel that, then obviously they can tailor that experience to themselves. so that what they do see is relevant for them. And I think relevancy is really key.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It feels like, what you're describing there, which I totally agree with. And I think it's a great ideology in marketing, is it seems like a shift more away from quality, but to quantity, and I think that to really build, and it's like anything, I suppose, in life, isn't it? But to really build a relationship based on trust, it has to be consistent, and there has to be that trust there where you've kind of said, yeah, cool, I'm happy to share my data. And I think if anything, it can be a bit of a win-win, can't it, where it's psychologically, where a consumer's sort of said, look, I'm happy to share my data with you, they're already kind of halfway there to potentially moving forward and making a purchase. Whereas where people get bombarded by things that aren't relevant, and people thinking, well, if we just send this out to enough people, we'll get some wins out of it. I think that people are quite tired of that approach, aren't they? So I think agencies that can pivot in the right way and really embrace that new dynamic that's going to be born off the back of, like say, explicit permission, I think are set for fair weather, hopefully. Yeah. Cool. So I find that, the whole area I find really, really interesting in terms of like what's, when you do something, how much of your behavior is based off, kind of what you've been exposed to and the kind of messages you've been exposed to. And certainly if I studied my own buying habits, in fact, I'm never going to do that. It would be quite depressing. But I do often, sort of question like, why am I buying this? Where have I seen this before? But sometimes it's usually an advert that's been following me around. But I think, well, I'm glad it did, actually, because it kind of kept suggesting the solution to me. So yeah, it's something I did psychology at university, so I'm always really interested in kind of behaviour and how people make decisions.
It is fascinating. I mean, if I were to really get into it and do some like bedtime reading, if you look about the demographics and the psychographics, I mean, we are, and profiling, we are multiple people throughout the day. We have different personas. So we wake up in the morning and we've got our parent hats on where we're getting the kids ready for school or whatever. And then you might go to the gym and you're in a different frame of mind. Then at lunchtime, you might call a friend. In the afternoon, you're doing the school pickup. Then, you're at work, or in the evening, you're with other friends, and you're in a different mindset, and it changes throughout the day. The content that you read and how you feel about things changes. So you might read a piece of content in the morning, and it might invoke a feeling or an emotion in you, or spark an interest, and you might be in a different frame of mind in the evening, read the same piece of content and take it differently. So we assume that we're one person and one persona, when actually it makes it sound like we're a bit schizophrenic. We're not, but well, maybe we are.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you catch me after 8 p.m, you get incoherent guy, but that's after the G&T's come out. Well, no, not this month. I'm doing dry January, quite industriously. But no, generally speaking, that's a really good point, actually. And I think the stage of the day you're exposed to certain content. I've sort of woken up in the morning and switched on my laptop, and you see an advert for something, and it's just you kind of shut it out. It doesn't register, but actually then it kind of comes up a different frame of mind throughout the day, and you do. So I think wearing that different many hats. I mean, we're not black and white creatures, are we? We're definitely, as much as there probably are repetitive behaviours, we definitely are a lot more subtle. So I guess there's a real level of complexity and subtlety that's involved in getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time as well. So it's interesting. So I guess on that note, I mean, in terms of the future, no one can predict the future, but I'm always interested to hear. I mean, where do you think that the future of marketing and kind of customer experience can go from here, and what are you most excited about for the world of marketing moving forward?
Well, I think we kind of touched on it before about the relevancy. So I think tapping into people's emotions, understanding what they're aware of, making it more meaningful for the future. So I think richer content, more meaningful content. I'm also hoping that we'll start to see some of the big creative advertising come back, because I think we've obviously got these legislative changes, which means that when we've talked about personalization at scale before, that was using first-party data, third-party data, and being able to do that. Now that those restrictions are sort of being forced upon us, maybe some of the more traditional media and advertising capability will actually come back into play. So waiting for the big advert to come on TV, that really kind of knocks you for six. Having creative like that come back into play, I think that will be incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think we're kind of seeing that actually quite a bit in recruitment as well. The difference between sales and marketing, and it's something I personally really enjoy, the whole branding piece. It's something I'm very passionate about with True North as a business, in terms of why I started it, and that I want it to be a business that really stood for something. And I kind of get really passionate about the creative element, about what kind of content we can put out there to kind of make that happen. And I think it's like you say, the creativity element and creating great marketing, great content. It's all about striking that emotional connection with someone, isn't it? Whereas before, when it, the sort of the cookie that might follow you around with little relevance was just all about quantity. Getting back to the point earlier, it's just about striking the right notes and creating real quality marketing. And that's really how you build a brand, isn't it? And how you create a following, as everybody remembers oh, have you seen that new Nike advert? It's incredible. And all of a sudden you're in a shop and you think, yeah, I'll buy that pair of trainers. But it's so true that people do remember genuinely good pieces of marketing. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, superb. Well, it's been a fascinating chat, Maddie. Really enjoyed speaking with you. And I like to kind of round up each podcast by asking, it's a question I stole from a guy called Rich Reed, who wrote a book called If I Could Tell You One Thing. It's the guy who created the Innocent Smoothies brand, and he basically went around like all the famous people in the world and asked for their one favorite bit of advice. It doesn't have to be data related or marketing related, but just if there's anything that you care to share with your fellow human. But is there a kind of a rule you live your life by, or your favorite piece of advice you care to share?
Oh my gosh. It's probably going to be really cliche, but
they're the good ones.
Okay. I just think if you're just honest and true with yourself, you can't go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely hear that one. I think you resonate with. I think just to take that to a marketing perspective as well, you resonate with people more when you're being genuine, and what you're saying is coming from a genuine place as well. And I think people will buy into you and your message a lot more as well. So I totally agree with that one. Fantastic. All right. Well, lovely. Well, very nice to speak with you, and thank you again. I look forward to keeping up with all of dentsu's innovative strategies over the course of the coming years, to, of course, keeping inside of all of the legislation. And let's absolutely keep in touch. And thanks very much for coming on. It's been a great chat.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Bye for now.